many of you, let me start with a question. How many of you are carrying an iPhone or an Android in your pockets? Let's see them, right? Okay, little bits of light. We live blessed and amazing lives today because of these devices we carry, right? We can connect to the far corners of the world. We can use these devices to augment and enrich our senses. We can record every moment for posterity. Incredible. But have you thought about what these are actually made of? These devices that have entirely transformed our lives and landscapes only in the last 2 decades, right? It's not been so long. Just one generation ago, this was not something that people had access to. So these batteries that power our digital devices, right? So the humble lithium ion battery that is in your phone that you're sometimes frustrated about, right? That is what has enabled this incredible transformation of our lives, this incredible transformation of our landscapes. But let me ask you a simple question. What powers these batteries? It's these little pieces of rock that are banks, that are reservoirs of charge, electrons, power, right? And where do these rocks come from? We build batteries from little rocks on each side, and we build larger batteries from other rocks, right? But it's basically little pieces of the earth, right? And these little pieces of the earth have been mined oftentimes from some very vulnerable communities, right? You are carrying with you today a piece of the Congo. You're carrying with you today a piece of Chile. These very vulnerable communities are in most cases powering our energy transition. They are paying the price for the lives and landscapes we live. So I want you to take a second to think about a young person in your lives, so maybe someone between the age of 8 and 14, right? Maybe a child, maybe a son, a daughter, a nephew, a niece, right? And how did we get this way? We wanted batteries, so we want to listen to tunes so Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, the Walkman came around, and then came our little iPhones and iPads and so on and so forth, right? But all of this comes at great cost. Many of the miners who are the artisanal miners that are getting these transformations are children under the age of 12. They work through the daylight hours, extracting metals, often under very harsh conditions. And when they grow up, often they bear arms as pawns to great powers in trying to meet our insatiable demand for energy, right? And this is what powers the little rocks. This is what brings to us the little rocks that we bear that enable so much of our lives today. As we undergo this massive transformation, we've had this huge paradigm shift coming through in energy, the energy transition, as we reduce our reliance on oil and move towards solar and wind. There is a new breeze blowing, right? But is this energy transition going to basically become a mineral transition? And what are the communities whose labor and sacrifice we will base this on? Is this transition, which is an incredibly important thing to save our planet from the catastrophic effects of climate change, is this going to be on the backs of some of the most vulnerable communities in the world? And so there is a new breeze blowing. We have to transition our energy systems. We understand that, right? To mitigate the catastrophic implications of CO2, we have to move to new sources of energy, solar and wind. This is great. But we're going to also have to save energy for those dark days, for those cloudy days, for those cloudy weeks, and to meet the huge guzzling demands of artificial intelligence. We're going to have to provision energy. We're going to have to store it, right? And how are we going to do this, right? We're going to have to build many, many, many batteries. We're going to have to build, just for the EU alone, 250 terawatt hours, right? This is a lot of batteries. What are we going to make these from? if you think about the emerging economies of the world, which will also base their rise on artificial intelligence, on computing, we're going to have to power all of this. And let's think deeply about how we find solutions to this power. What solutions we find will define who we are as a people. If these solutions come at the cost of the most vulnerable, or if this is actually equitable, actually just, and distributed across the world. So let me tell you that it's not too late. There is time for the world to change, that there's time for us to do it in the correct way. If we can set aside short-sightedness, if we can set aside just demands of commerce to take a more global, a more holistic view of how we source the energy transition. These metals that we need, these minerals that we need for the energy transition, they're everywhere. Perhaps in lower quantities, perhaps in different sorts of matrices. They're in steel slags, in abandoned steel mills across Europe. They are in dirty water from oil fields and gas fields that have been abandoned. They are in the Upper Rhine-Graben. We just need the will, the science, the technology to make these, to recover these, so that all of the materials we need for the energy transition aren't just sourced from the most vulnerable communities, but from everywhere, so that we can all chip in with our resources to build the lives and landscapes we want to see. One man's trash is one man's treasure. Can we go in there? One of the things that my lab is working on, funded by the Swiss National Science Foundation and InnoSwiss, is to try to extract lithium from unconventional reserves, including oil field wastewater. A second solution, do we need to have the same type of batteries across the world? Does that really make sense? Or could we come up with technologies that are personified, that are individualized, that are bespoke for individual communities, for individual nations, that take advantage of the resources that are local, right? And that are built in a just and equitable manner from local manufacturing that creates new jobs and that brings along local communities and gets them to pitch in to the energy transition. This is not easy. I don't mean to say that it is going to be easy. This is going to need a lot of work. How many people are students in this audience? A lot of students, incredible, right? So a lot of students in this generation, your enthusiasm for combating climate change is incredible. But this is also one of the defining challenges of our generation, right? We need you more than ever in the labs to roll up your sleeves. We need every type of talent. This is an all hands on deck moment, right? Every kind of talent to make these, from laboratory curiosities to actual technologies that we can use. This is the clarion call for your generation. Because if we don't get this right, that's going to propagate all of the inequities that we've seen in previous generations and previous modes of manufacturing and industrialization propagate through once again. This is your time. So I urge you to step into the lab, step into the startups with every bit of energy you have to solve this problem, right? And a final thought I want to leave you with is, unlike oil, minerals are very different. Minerals, you burn oil into carbon dioxide, which pollutes the atmosphere, but minerals can be recycled, potentially endlessly recycled. This is an incredible opportunity, a real new idea. Could we stop owning minerals, but instead of being owners, could we become stewards of minerals? Right? Could we rent these resources, these mineral resources that are in your phones, from the communities from where they're extracted, and give them a fair trade, water, education, infrastructure? Could we give them benefits that accrue over generations as we use them? And could we use minerals in a circular way, where an electrolyte in a large battery gets turned into the rebar that becomes part of a huge skyscraper? Could we adopt an entirely different approach where we think about minerals as community resources that are not owned by individuals, but that are shared across the planet? This requires new thinking, a new change in paradigm about how we think about our relationship with materials, with minerals, and technology. So I'm going to leave you with this thought, right? If we have a new paradigm change coming in energy. We have the chance, we have the time, but not a whole lot of time, to get this right, to do it in a manner that is just, that is equitable, and that brings all our communities along, not just a few, right? And I would urge you, in whatever roles you are, to pitch in to this part of the energy transition and to reimagine our relationship with materials and minerals so that they are more considered, collaborative, and circular. Thank you so much again.